welcome to Frankie Cents and More. I forget what show I'm on. It's Thursday, right? Yeah, Frankie Cents and More. I'm really excited because it's been a long time in coming to have this guest on my show. But today, you might know him, is Chris Cordani, and he is the host, radio host, producer, voice artist, and broadcast specialist who also works as a consulting strategist for those clients who are looking for publicity and they want to be guests on traditional and new media outlets. Yeah. In addition, Chris is also a skilled digital editor and copywriter. And you probably know him from this. He is the creator and host of the internationally syndicated Revenge of the 80s radio show. Today, Chris and I are going to chat about women in rock and women who rock our musical world. And I'm going to say that the two of us being about a decade apart in age makes a big difference. Chris loves his punk and his hard rock groups. Well, I kind of prefer classic rock, funk, and fusion. But that's great because we're going to make for a wonderful discussion. And while our musical tastes differ, we do agree on many artists. So how about you? Stay with us during this live hour. Let us know which female artists you think should be recognized. Well, welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me here, Frankie.
It is definitely my pleasure. Okay. Well, I have to say that this is kind of your idea. You say, hey, Frankie, let's do, women who rock. And that's cool because I used to be a woman who rocked. Sometimes I still do.
It was a cunning plan, actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to see if we have anybody who wants to say anything first. And I'm going to just take us over here for a sec. Would you like to start with, I guess we should start, I don't know, you brought her up first. Maybe we'll start with Suzi Quatro. What do you think?
That's a big one. Yes, okay. We should, because a lot of people in America know Suzi as Leather Tuscadero, and maybe from the song Stumbling In. She had a lot of huge hits in the 1970s and 80s in Great Britain. But she stands to be, or she is somebody who is extremely influential because she's a bass player and a hard rocker. You did not see that in the 1970s. You didn't see much of that in the 60s or 50s. A little bit of it in the, let's say, the emerging folk scene where you had your Janis Joplins of the world, but none of them carried an axe. And that's where Suzi comes in.
Well, Suzi was also, okay, so she was on Happy Days, if the folks didn't get that reference. And it's in reruns, so if you weren't watching it back in the day, you can still see it today. She was also a model. She's extremely beautiful. And as you mentioned today, Suzi, for some reason, is not in the Rock Hall of Fame, and it's bugging her.
Well, it's bugging a lot of people. I had Sherry Curry on my show a couple of times, and one of them was after Joan Jett was inducted, or I believe was nominated to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
And she is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
She is there. Yeah. Before that. So I said, so when's it time for the Runaways and Sherry Curry to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And she said, not until Suzi Quatro gets there first. I concur with that because she did, and keep in mind, this is somebody who changed the way women were looked at in rock and roll. You did not, and I said it before, you did not see females rocking out really hard. A lot of women were relegated to softer music at the time. Maybe it was changing a little bit with Motown, but definitely you didn't have them hard rocking. You didn't have them playing a guitar and a bass. That was unheard of.
Yeah. Well, the 70s was a time of grand change. So, like crazy things were happening in the 70s.
Well, much as we like the Karen Carpenters of the world and the beautiful voice Debbie Boones, that was the kind of music that women were I would say told to perform, and maybe exaggerating at that point, but that was a stereotype.
It was a different genre. It was a little bit of a different genre than they were, like you said, they're kind of poppy as opposed to rockers.
Right. But considering Suzi's place in rock and roll history, I question why she wasn't even nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, I understand there's an American bias, but there are a lot of influential artists that haven't gotten in there yet either, and these aren't women, but MC5 and the Pogues are the same way.
Yeah. Who was it that put Joan Jett in? I can't remember who it was that was her put her in. I'll look up. That was kind of cool. Okay, so Suzi, we hope that you get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
She is really upset about that. I do want to add to this because now I'm going to put a shameless plug in here. She's my next guest on Revenge of the 80s Radio. We premiere on Friday night, March 1st, playing on our affiliates throughout the week. I'll have a podcast available, so check it out, revengeofthe80sradio.com. We're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, TuneIn, and others. But she talks about it, and we read about it in Billboard, but she talks about it. She tells you why she's upset, and I believe it kind of hurts her feelings a little bit. And I'm not a feelings guy, but I understand where it's coming from, because without her, there aren't going to be any hearts. There aren't going to be any runaways. There might not have been the Go-Go's. There might not have been Exene Cervenka. And there might not have been some of the modern day rockers.
And who would have been on Happy Days? Come on. So if you think that Susie Quatro should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I want you to write in. We're going to start a list. We're going to start, a
mini petition.
A mini petition, yeah. So write to us. Let us know. We'll start a petition for Susie for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let's do it. I think that's a good plan.
I'm with you.
Well, I'm serious, guys. Write into me.
This is a serious subject too, because and keep in mind her place in rock and roll history probably can't be denied. Can't be denied.
Exactly. I agree. And if people didn't know her, like what would her top 1-2 song be?
In America, her top song was a duet, "Stumbling In." Everybody knows that one, who's been around in the 70s. You remember that big hit?
Yeah.
Devil Gate Drive was crossover into here. Rock Hard. She had a lot of really cool covers. She has a new album out called No Control, and it's absolutely fantastic. Yes, I might be a little biased because I like her type of music, but the fact is, if you like hard rocking females and a little bit of classic roots rock, plus a little bit of a twist thrown in with the newer stuff, because she collaborates with her son, check it out.
Oh, that's cool.
But you might like her stuff as Leather Tuscadero from Happy Days as well.
Okay. Well, I think there's a giant in the room who has to be mentioned, and I guess it's Janis Joplin. And actually, you know what, guys? I'm going to share my screen for just a second, because I think that you probably wanted to see, if you can't remember what she looked like. This was Susie. This was Susie Quatro. Hang on, I'm just going to move you over. And hang on here.
And there you go. And just like we were talking about, Frankie, this is a lady who's carrying a bass guitar. She's playing it.
And she looks hot. She looks really hot.
Well, yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. This is the.
Hey, you know what? Today she would love that you said she was really hot. I think you were hot, Susie.
But there we are. Somebody who absolutely rocks, and Janis Joplin did a lot of the same thing. Now she wasn't a guitar player, and it was a lot different for women. But Janis Joplin also did harder rock when women just weren't doing that. Even, I'll say hippie music at the time, they were doing the softer stuff. Now, yes, there were women-led bands. Spanky and Our Gang, one of them.
Yeah.
The Mamas and the Papas, the women and the men were pretty equal. Yeah. Fleetwood Mac became I'd say a hybrid male and female-led band. And if you want to segue into somebody else, Stevie Nicks, we might. Yeah,
I want to just talk about Janis for a sec.
Yeah, you got it.
Because she died at 27 and already had 3 albums under her belt when she died. And the 4th album came out posthumously about 3 months after her death. And it was named Pearl after her nickname, which was Pearl. And I have to say that Janis was well loved by a lot of people. I guess her probably most famous song is Bobby McGee. I think that's the most sung song, let's say, if you were going to do karaoke of Janis. So you're probably going to sing Bobby McGee.
That or the Mercedes-Benz song, because I believe we all try to sing that one, or at least we're thinking of that in our heads.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a shame what happened to her, too.
It was a shame. But
what I really liked about her, and I want to set this in there, Frankie, is she also wasn't a perfectly packaged woman either, as the record industry might like, and she was a real woman. She had a lot of experiences. She was a different, I'd say, a free-spirited type that the kids liked those days, but she was. She showed a lot of people they could do things that maybe they couldn't do, mainly women, in the last over the last 10, 15 years of rock, or I should say 10 to 12 years of rock.
Let's bring on Hart. Ann and Nancy Wilson, gorgeous sisters, absolutely beautiful. What I think what's really interesting about them is they actually found fame in Canada first. They're American, but their fame was found in Canada first in the mid-70s, and their music was influenced by hard rock and heavy metal, but also folk music. So you have a song like Barracuda, which is like one of their top songs, nestled in with Dog and Butterfly, which is an absolutely beautiful song. And still, I mean, the thing is with this music, it still holds up today. Still holds up today. Like
it does, and a lot of classic rock does.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Here are two women. One belts out tunes like nobody's business, and the other one plays lead guitar. How many lead guitarists were women in that time?
Yeah,
at least prominently, at least given record contracts, if you will.
Well, next on my list is Chrissie Hynde from the Pretenders. And I'm just going to show a few more, and then I'll come back on and meet you on air here. But what do you have to say about Chrissie? I mean, she's an American singer-songwriter. She was the founding member, as we said, of the Pretenders. And one of her number one song was God Only Knows, written by Brian Wilson from Beach Boys.
Absolutely. And of course, Brass in Pocket, where she was, her video told a story, as a matter of fact. So she was one of those, she was very influential in a lot of ways, but she also knew how to take advantage of the early days of video. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of good performance videos like Middle of the Road, but the Brass in Pocket performance was absolutely spectacular. And again, it led the way, or was one of the video leaders for the storytelling MTV type video of the future, maybe the little mini movie that the videos have become.
And we have Pat Benatar, and we talked, already a little bit about Pat and Sherry and
Pat Benatar, a trained opera singer, by the way.
Oh, is she?
Oh yeah, and she, you could tell by her voice. If you think about it now, see, now that I told you that, you're going to go back and listen to her music and say, now I know how she could reach that. Now I know how she could do that. And now I know how she could hold that for so long.
Now, top 3 songs, Getting Hot, Cherry Bomb, and I Love Playing with Fire.
Cherry Bomb. And of course, that's from another great female group, the Runaways.
Yeah.
For me, my favorite songs, my top 3 from Pat Benatar, it's a tough one. I go Get Nervous, Love is a Battlefield, another story.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
And I do like the Ooh Ooh song, which is a little known track, the follow-up single from her We Belong, the follow-up single after We Belong. So that was, I just liked it for some reason. It's just something, I like those sort of, it was just different for Pat Benatar. It's hard to explain. I just liked it. A lot of ooh oohs in it. There we go.
I can say, hi, Linda Todd. Linda, what was your favorite? Who's your favorite female artist? Let us know. I'd like to know. And their favorite, and your favorite song that they sang or played, especially if they're a player. Because I'm a drummer and I just love female drummers. And I had a license plate, DRUMHER for drum her. And
another instrument I just didn't see.
Yeah.
Female drummers were, and I talked about female bassists and female lead guitarists, but are probably even more rare with the famous female drummers. Now, you saw them in the girl bands. They didn't get a lot of attention. However, if you go back to the mid-'60s, the British Invasion, the Honeycombs had a drummer, and they actually named the band after her hairstyle, Honey Lantry. She had the beehive.
I'm going to show you guys a picture of Honey because I know you're dying to see her.
Yes.
And let's see if I can find her
And
here.
for those of you who don't know the name of the band, their big song was Have I the Right?
There she is here, Honey Lantry.
Honey Lantry.
And she was a singer too. I mean, she didn't just play the drum. And I tell you one thing, it is not easy to play the drums and sing a song at the same time. Very difficult.
Not only that, Honey Lantry was the drummer in a band that was male dominated, which is something you never see. The female was always the lead singer, never an instrumentalist in a band.
Yeah. Linda, I'm sorry. Cat Stevens is a man. We're talking about women today. What's your favorite female?
There we go.
I do love Cat Stevens, though. I got to tell you, I love him. Even as Yusef, I love him.
Great voice. Great voice.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah.
And Honey Lantry, of course, paved the way for a lot of the girl bands, too. You had full girl bands coming out. Again, we'll go back to the Runaways, but there were the girl vocal groups who a lot of today's new wavers, punkers, and rockers will tell you Well, my influences go back to Ronnie and the Ronettes. They go back to Mary Weiss and the Shangri-Las. And they're very important in music history too, because all these all-girl bands did buck the trend.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a woman leading a boys band, or it wasn't a female act doing some nice ballads or rocking a little bit. These were women who took it on their own and created hits and toured.
I'm gonna show you two ladies here. Actually, I'm gonna share again, because to me, I don't know, they always remind me of each other. And let's see if you feel the same way. So here we have Patti Smith.
Of course.
And we have Carol Pope. And Carol Pope was with Rough Trade. And I mean, who doesn't remember High School Confidential? Sexy, sexy song. She was the first lesbian, really, I think, who fronted a band, who actually came out and said, hey, you know what? I'm all for the girls. But for some reason, Patti and Carol always kind of look alike to me.
It's true. And Patti was credited with leading the New Wavers. She led the New Wave punk movement, at least credited that way. But she, in my book, she was her own musician. I don't know if we could have really put her in a category. It was almost just a Patti Smith category.
And you loved her or you hated her? I mean, I remember these Patti Smith people were like,
there's absolutely no way you can't like Patti Smith. And because there's a little Patti Smith in all of us. There really is. If you
like the bad boys, she's the bad girl. So
exactly.
All right. Am I still sharing? I think I am. Okay. So Blondie. Come on, Debbie Harry.
Debbie Harry still rocks, and she's over 70.
Yeah.
She toured at 70. She's, well, again, words can't describe her, because she mixed new wave, punk, and pop, and a little disco together at times, but she really was new wave, punk, and pop, had those sensibilities, put them together, and led what has become one of the more influential and legendary bands in rock history.
And looked great doing it.
And she was on the Muppet Show once. I still can't forget the experience she had with a Muppet named Pops. And I was what, 10 maybe or 11 when this came on. You know, I guess it was 11 or 12, and she was the guest. And Pops said, you remember that older guy with the
yeah.
He was the kind of
the hair coming out of his ears.
Yeah, the stagehand. He goes, you know, if I had a band, I wouldn't name it Blondie. That's a terrible name. She goes, yeah, well, I'm sure if you had a name, you'd call it Baldy. And Blondie was kind of the well, it was again a female lead with male artists, but Blondie brought in a lot of very interesting people with her too. In fact, she collaborated later on with Dee Dee Ramone. One of my personal favorite singers did backup for Debbie Harry and Blondie a couple times, and her name's Donna Destry, and she's done a lot of very different music throughout the years. So that's somebody I really like to listen to.
Actually, when I look at Debbie, she kind of reminds me of Alana Miles in a way. I mean, blonde and dark, but there's that look. I don't know. They both have this look. And Alana Miles, of course, is a Canadian rocker, and you would know her from.
Well, Black Velvet was a big song.
Black Velvet, yeah.
And that was a roots rockish song. It was something I was surprised in the era we were in that it became as big of a hit as it was. But a lot of female rockers really did pretty well in the 90s. There was a little rise of sort of the roots rockish women, and the sort of at the risk of sounding like a chauvinist, the angrier music, if you will, the Alanis Morissette types, who the old child star from You Can't Do That on Television. You couldn't even, big difference there, but
huge. But I think
did something though. She really did.
Atlanta had a serious car accident, and I think that's what derailed her career.
Yes,
because she was in a lot of pain for a lot of years. So some people think one hit wonder, I guess, with Black Velvet, but really she was just kind of taken out a little bit too soon. Let me see. Sorry, I'm just going to read it in the chat room here for a second. Oh, Barbara Streisand. Yeah, but she's not a rocker. We're talking about women who rock. I love it, though. Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. Okay, my all-time favorite, Joni Mitchell. And there's something about Joni. She transcends everything. Like, she draws from pop and rock and jazz. She was at Woodstock. She wrote Woodstock. She, she's in The Last Waltz, such a beautiful movie. If you don't know, I mean, who doesn't know Joni Mitchell? But Big Yellow Taxi, Judy Collins song, Both Sides Now.
Right. The good version of Big Yellow Taxi. Too many people covered that song, and
are you talking about the Crows? Is that what you said?
That and a bunch of others. But
I think they did a great job on that song.
I believe a lot of people who covered that song kind of took the soul that Joni put into it out, though. And sometimes I'm going off on a tangent, but Joni really, that was her song, and I guess it'll always be. Some songs are just harder to cover than others.
I really felt that. Well, I think the Black Crowes did a really credible job. I'm just going to bring Joni's picture up here for a sec. My favorite song of Joni's is Coyote. I just think it's just lyrically, and it's just perfect. It's just so incredible. The stuff that she comes out with is crazy. I don't know where these words come from. I think, what is it? She talks about you need to go back to, like, the guy, he was a farmer, horse farmer, and he had to go back where, to Eastern Canada, where there was Appaloosas and tides and carbon ribbon rides. I mean, who thinks of that? From the old typewriters, those carbon ribbon rides. I'm like, oh, that's such a great line,
Exactly.
Amazing. Just love her. And she had, she's actually, I just found out she is playing this week, March 1st, at Hughes Room in Toronto.
Well, see, you should go over there.
I'm definitely going. I'm going.
Take a walk from go to Toronto. There we go.
I'm going.
Hop the train and get there unless there's a big snowstorm between, because it's still March and you know what happens.
Yeah, exactly. But I absolutely just love her. And I thought she's ill with something, but I'm glad to see that she's coming out. That's really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah. It's a treat to see people who performed when we were younger out these days. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they'll do smaller venues, but that means they'll come out and do a meet and greet. You get to meet some of the artists you weren't able to, who might have seemed just too big for reality 20, 30 years ago when they were playing to huge arenas.
Like, we were talking earlier about female bass players, and I had mentioned Carol Kay from the Wrecking Crew. And the Wrecking Crew is kind of really cool because they were a bunch of session musicians who would come together and play. And people like Glenn Campbell, which is, kind of cool. And who else was in the Wrecking Crew? Let me think here. Tommy Tedesco.
They were very well recorded.
Leon Russell. Musicians. Yeah, really well respected musicians. And she is still, see her today with her bass player on YouTube. It's really cool. I just love it. She looks like she's in her 70s, right?
Here's a little piece of trivia. Are you a Jeopardy fan?
I do like Jeopardy, yeah.
Well, if you're Jackie Fuchs, who was in the Runaways, that's her real name, Fuchs. She was a recent Jeopardy champion, a few days.
Oh, really?
She accumulated some good money. She rattled off those answers like nobody's business. But
wow,
she's absolutely highly intelligent. Then I found out she has done a lot of other game shows and won them. So
really.
She's a trivia meister, very well read, and I don't remember, but I believe she's a librarian. Don't quote me on that. I'm trying to remember if she was or wasn't.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this: she had a world of knowledge in her head and was able to win all these.
A lot of brilliant people. People go, "Oh, you're just a musician," but I mean, look at Queen the other night. From they were obviously they were on the Academy Awards ceremonies, but a PhD in nuclear medicine or brain, whatever. I can't even remember what he's got, but I mean, like, crazy, right? A PhD, like, hello, it's not easy to get a PhD.
Oh no, it's not. And keep in mind also that a lot of these musicians, a lot of these guys don't just do the rock or the stuff we know. Some of them will sit there and they'll write music scores. They'll they're well versed in all types of music, including very difficult classical music. So a lot of the intelligence they have is really poured into their own craft.
That's it, for sure. Somebody I think that we need to mention, is, well, you did bring her up very, very quickly, I guess, and we passed over her, was Alanis Morissette. And Alanis, you know, she used to be like a little pop star, but with Jagged Little Pill, she came on the scene and she just exploded. Like that, I don't know what happened with that, but that was just like, whoa.
Well, it was in the middle of that angst period of music we had in the U.S., so it was perfect for it. It was the teen angst, the female angst. You saw the television programs, all the kids were wearing plaid and depressed about everything and angry over everything. So the music just took that turn. It was the grunge music of the time. And Alanis Morissette just fit right in there. Still, I always forget. There was always the rumor as to who that You Ought to Know song was.
Who it was about.
So there was the rumor about Dave Coulier, and then there was the thought it was Mike Peluso, the NHL player.
Who knows? At least she's not Taylor Swift. Not everything goes in her.
Right. I mean, look.
Kiss and tell.
And I don't think what's his name, was it Kanye West, would go up and get angry over Alanis Morissette winning a Grammy over Beyonce or something like that, because Alanis would probably hit him.
I don't know. She seems to be quite the lady these days.
There we go. We're talking about the 90s. There we go.
I think people, we grow up. I mean, talking about somebody who would have hit you, let's look at Avril Lavigne, because Avril Lavigne was like a little skater chick, you know, came out with her boy stuff and her skater, and she's blossomed into a young lady, young woman today. But Avril has been really sick for like 3 or 4 years, where she was almost bedridden, and she didn't know. She went to doctor. She didn't know what was going on, and apparently she had Lyme disease. And finally somebody figured it out, and they started to treat her for it. And she wrote this song, Head Above Water. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful video. Just came out in February. And I mean, people would know her from Complicated, her song Complicated, and of course her husband from Nickelback, but they separated during that time when she was really, really ill. But this Head Above Water is really about how she felt she was drowning and dying and couldn't breathe. And she reached out to God, and she felt saved. So it's pretty cool.
And in her early days, she was one of those young,
really angry.
The skater pop or skater punk music. And again, if you want to go that far, sure. She was somebody who was doing something really the men were doing at the time, but women were coming into their own in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s because of the people we discussed earlier. And women just flourished.
But she had to be like 15 or 16, because she's only 27 or something today, right? She's not that old. So she was really, really young when she happened on the scene.
The Runaways were young too when they started. And Girls' School, those girls were young. You know, Girls' School is the British metal band, all female. They're the longest running all female band.
Wow.
From 1979 onward.
Really? Yeah, they're still going.
Yeah, they are. Unfortunately, one of their original members, Kelly Johnson, passed away.
Oh, okay.
Cancer. But they're still performing. They're still well known and highly respected. But that's a lot of years. And I believe one of the other longest running bands is a Japanese band called Shonen Knife, who did some Ramones covers earlier in their career, and they sometimes do that in their alter ego, the Ramonas. But Shonen Knife's a trio out of Japan.
They sound a little poppy.
Right, but they were more punk or power pop, if you will. That's another thing. Power pop was a male-dominated genre. Okay. Technically, it was put together by a band called The Nerves, where Peter Case, Paul Collins, and Jack Lee had the band, and they kind of originated the format, which is kind of an offshoot of powerful songs from the 60s. It became a huge thing. They were the ones who did the original Hanging on the Telephone, Blondie's song.
Yeah,
the one Blondie made famous, and I guess groups like a lot of the girl groups kind of took that kind of music, or took that, maybe a blend of punk, new wave, and made their own stuff. Like then we go to the Go-Go's. I talked about Shonen Knife, who's still playing today. They released their I believe 16th album,
wow.
19th album in 2016.
Wow,
they're still touring. The Go-Go's were big, and let's see, the Bangles.
The Bangles were big.
The all girl bands. They were. If we want to go back to Japan, the late 80s, we saw the 5, 6, 7, 8s. Detroit had Nikki and the Corvettes. Again, all girls. The girls were starting to just say, hey, right, we're not going to be just doing the, you're not going to toss in the closet and packages up so we're pretty and doing You Lit Up My Life anymore. No, we're going to just do songs that say we're driving a train and we're going to run into people and we have musical power. We're going to rock like you guys do. And that's what's been happening. Right.
You know, I'm going to take a break from this for a second and ask you a question. Have you ever gone to see somebody that you absolutely loved and kind of wish you hadn't, just because you put them in this time capsule and they sounded so good, and over here as they aged their voice wasn't as strong, or they just, they're a little bit off key now, and has that ever happened to you?
It really hasn't, because sometimes bands will never sound as good live as they do in the studio. It's just the way it works. I like to just go and listen to the groups play. If it's a little off, if it's not as good, I'm fine with it. I'll be honest with you. I just enjoy it.
Okay. I enjoy it too. But like, I've seen like bands like Chicago bring up younger guys to hit those high notes, or, just now who was I saw just not that long last year. I guess it was, what was his name? Oh, he's like in his 80s now. He looked actually like he was almost dead. It's terrible to say.
I won't even drop a name here because there are quite a few. Tony Bennett's still performing.
Yeah, he looks good though. Gordon Lightfoot. It was Gordon Lightfoot actually. Okay. But yeah, he looked really good. Tony,
I think you can expect a lot of these gentlemen and ladies to sometimes hit the super high notes or the super low notes like they might have been able to in the earlier years. It just,
they can certainly still play.
It's not like they're lip syncing though, right?
No.
You don't want that. You
not want that. No. I think it's great. And I'm not an ageist at all. I don't mean that, but I just, sometimes, if they're your idol, I don't know, like Steven Tyler, I was so excited to go see him, but I kind of thought, I should have just left it over here a little bit.
On the other hand, you see what he's doing for other people. He's a big time philanthropist.
Yes, and so I love that.
He could sound like a sandpaper scraping a wall with a chalkboard and the nails thing, but we'll always respect the fact that he was great in his time, and it's great that he's out there because we like to see him and we respect his
absolutely. And here's something else. This is my big pet peeve, people. So if you see me at a concert, do not do this to me. I'm 5'1". They stand up in front of you. You have a seat. You paid for your seat, and then everybody stands up for the entire concert. And I just went to a concert a couple weeks ago, and I couldn't even see the band. Even if I stood on my chair. Everybody was standing in front of me, and I was so pissed off. And it's like, okay, stand up for a song or two or three, but the whole entire thing, I ended up walking out because that pissed me off.
Yeah, if you wanted to stand up, then
go in the center.
Go in the center. Stand up down there.
Yeah,
down in front. If you're 6'7" and the person behind you is 5'1", 5'2", 5'3", sit down in front.
Exactly.
Stand in the aisle.
You're doing this? Like, who cares? Sit down and do it.
And we didn't come to watch you pretend to dance and do the
white
boy slide. They do the white boy slide. That's the one where they stand up and they move their feet
exactly.
Like this.
Yeah.
That's enough. I don't want to watch that. I've seen that on the dance floor. Sit down.
That's my pet peeve. Okay, because I just spent $100 and I couldn't see a band.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you say, "Oh my gosh, I accidentally spilled my beer on the seat in front of me. Oh my gosh."
But you'd have to Bill. Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, that just really makes me mad. So don't do it to me. Stop it. Sit down. People want to see. Everybody wants to see.
Unless you want popcorn in your shirt or something like
that. Yeah, I was doing that to the girls.
Cast a spell.
Who's this woman throwing popcorn at me? Like, sit down. All righty. Okay. Somebody who was actually in the 40s and 50s was Big Mama Thornton.
Right. People might know her song Hound Dog. That was the original version of the Elvis Presley song. She was, again, a trend bucker, an influential person in music because
Little Red Rooster, people know that song, Little Red Rooster.
The old R&B, the old soul circuit was also a boys club, but there were a lot of great female voices. And Big Mama Thurman's Hound Dog became a huge hit for Elvis Presley, and they did kind of homogenize it for the early rock years. But to be somebody who created, who sang a song and created kind of a mood of a song as a singer to still have the influence today. And you're talking now over 70 years later.
Yep.
You're talking about somebody like that. I mean, people still love Hound Dog. People still cover Sinatra songs. These are people who are timeless. These are people who, I mean, who are, see, this is where, again, no words. These are people who will always be influential. They'll influence the influencers. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. That's going to be on your thing. Influence the influencers.
Really? Because I think my tombstone, my epitaph would read.
That's what I was going to say. That's your epitaph. Influencing the influencer. You got to love it. You got to love it. Boy. Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy is one of the great guitarists in punk music history. She was she was the lead guitarist and, she was the lead guitarist of the Cramps and wife of the late Lux Interior. A lot of women cite her as a big influence, and punk rock also. Well, punk rock, interestingly, started in the early 70s. It became more mainstream, relatively mainstream. And people learned more about punk after Richard Branson signed the Sex Pistols with the early Virgin Records in 1972. Yeah, it was naturally a male-dominated type of genre, but quickly, and I mean quickly, not kind of like crawling like rock did and country in a way, but quickly, female rockers, female punkers hit the scene, and the Cramps were just very different. They were like a new wave punk out there New York City underground band, and there they were, a husband and wife team, and Poison Ivy lead guitar. Again, something you just didn't see in the late 70s and the 80s. It's just started happening a little more so. But a lead guitarist who major female stars still today consider an influence, and she really hasn't picked up the guitar from what I've been reading and understanding since Lux Interior died some years ago. So that's a sad thing, but I guess we understand that.
One of the first concerts I saw was Bonnie Raitt, and Bonnie is a blues rocker. She's a guitarist, a songwriter. During the 70s, she is roots influenced. I love Bonnie Raitt. She's got a voice to die for. And her top 3 songs would be, and you've heard this just recently, I Can't Make You Love Me, Something to Talk About, and Angel from Montgomery, which is a fantastic song. Bonnie has that beautiful red hair and that white streak that goes down her. She's always had it. She had it in the 70s, I think. And I met her in the 80s. Still fantastic. And she's still fantastic today. There's not she's just an amazing musician, amazing songwriter, well respected. Her dad was also a musician. I can't remember if he was more of a classical musician, but he was a musician.
Oh, also Bonnie Raitt was, I guess we'd call her country rock here.
She's blues. She's blues.
I guess blues rock, country rock. Rock actually comes from country anyway.
Yeah,
if you will, and it kind of comes from blues. It's sort of a mix of rock and blues in a way, and then kind of took its own form afterwards into the subgenres and everything. So if you call something country rock or southern rock or blues rock, it kind of is all the same thing. It kind of, you could pretty much call it anything you want. But she was with
Billy Preston. I mean, right. it was Bonnie Raitt and Billy Preston concert. It was like crazy.
I did like some of her.
And maybe Don McLean.
She did one live album, and Kim Wilson was in the band. That's the guy from the Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
That was one of the ones I really enjoyed, and I like the way the two of them harmonized together.
I love her voice. I think she's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Who haven't we talked about? Let me see that I love, that you love. Oh, there's so many. Oh, we did. Well, okay. So because I'm a drummer, and we started to talk about drummers with Honey Lantry, but Sheila E., who many people know, she played with Prince and also singer, but just an amazing percussionist and so well respected in the industry.
Oh, keep in mind that she could rock the quads like have you seen those great drummers in college marching bands? You've seen how they could play the quads. She could she had that live show. She did that and sang at the same time. It was actually that's something that you don't realize. It's very tough to do.
It's really
any
tough.
Instrument you're playing the quads and singing at the same time.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to do, and I know because I've tried it. But here she is, gorgeous. She always wears high heels. She always looks dressed to the nines, absolutely gorgeous, and just drumming. And it's hard to stand up and drum like that. It really is. It's not easy, and sing. So kudos to you, Sheila E. You are my idol.
Sheila E. was again somebody you didn't see, a female drummer who made
it huge.
Later on, one of the great female drummers who came in later on was Meg White of the White Stripes, the suspected brother, sister, or husband-wife team at the time. That was always a fun debate, who's who and which one was which. But Meg White was a fine drummer.
And here's another bassist. We've got Kim Deal. She was in the Breeders and the Pixies.
That's right. She was, again, she remains influential today to a lot of the modern female rock guitarists. And people will say rock is dying these days, but it really isn't. It's just sort of different nowadays. So a lot of it's kind of been more mellow. A lot of kids are listening to older stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
But I find that young people, a lot of them really turn themselves on to the Pixies. That's where I was getting to. And Kim Deal was a huge part of that band.
I can't believe I didn't get her picture. Oh, here she is. Tina Turner. Look at that. Legs. Miss Legs.
Right.
Here's somebody who I really admire, Tina, because Ike was extremely abusive. And, he did beat her, and he really smothered her and expected her to go out and make the money kind of thing, perform. And I'm just so grateful that she got away from him. Little known, I don't know, people know she's a Buddhist. She's just absolutely the most amazing woman. And she's still performing today too.
I liked her in Mad Max. I can't help it. It was a low budget movie, but it was fantastic, and she was superb.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's absolutely, here we have Martha and the Vandellas.
Again, another one of the early Motown groups that were, and the early girl groups who were influential to the girl bands that came on in the late 70s, early 80s, and beyond.
Okay, Miss Aretha, Queen of Soul. Now, Aretha, we were talking about this earlier, but I mean, how amazing that this woman who just passed away last year I think she had 2 presidents at her funeral at the same day. Wasn't it the same day that they put McLean?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was the same day or it was the same week. I know that.
Yeah, for sure it was the same week, and I thought it was like one after the other. But how amazing is that to have such influence on the world that 2 presidents came to your funeral?
Yeah, and she really just had I don't know much about her except for the fact she had that small role as the mean wife on the Blues Brothers. No, I'm just kidding. But she was the mean wife on the Blues Brothers. I remember that. Oh no, she was. And again, another person who a lot of today's artists and a lot of artists throughout even her own career said that, hey, she influenced me. She's one of the artists that people for the next century will be looking up to.
Nobody sings like Aretha.
Exactly.
Nobody.
Again, it's like Sinatra. People will look up to her for a long, long time.
Here's the Bangles, if you forgot what they looked like.
Bangles, again, a very different band. Yep. There's your Avril Lavigne.
Here's Avril. And I want to talk about Jan Arden. Okay. Jan Arden is probably the funniest woman in rock, if you want to call her that. She is absolutely hilarious. She has a mind that's like crazy. And I just love Jan. And one of the stories that Jan talks about on stage, I'm going to stop sharing, is and this is what's so hard about women. She was in Los Angeles. She was with a producer and about to be signed. And he said, "You know what? You're 30 pounds away from stardom."
I remember this. Okay.
Right. And like, holy shit, what does that have to do with your talent? With singing on the radio, nobody sees you. Like, honest to God, I mean, she's an incredible songwriter, incredible singer, but just as a songwriter, and 30 pounds away from stardom. And that just, you know what, your self-esteem takes a hit like that, and you're done.
this is what we were talking about before. The industry likes to pre-package and make and create pop princesses, and we have a lot of those right now, especially. They don't have to sing anymore. Now they just have to have auto-tune.
Yeah.
Even back in our day, the pop princesses had to sing, at least have some talent. But again, I'm not the judge of all these things. I just know that we didn't need auto-tune back in the day. A lot of very talented women, I believe, were passed over by the industry because of their appearance, and that I never thought was fair. This is why we should really pay attention, admire the women like Janis Joplin, like Spanky, like MTV had some troubles even playing Romeo Void videos because they thought, because now Deborah Ayala is beautiful, but she's a little overweight, and when the lead singer came on, they were doing videos, there was a little trepidation from interviews that I've had with Deborah, where she talked about this, what happened back then. And I don't think it's right, because we want to hear the music.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm in the majority here. I'd like to know what the women who are listening to you think, but there are a lot of women who in the, let's say, first 3 to 4 decades of rock, and even today, have been, I guess we're missing some great talent because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they would never say that to a guy, ever, ever, ever. Talk about,
here you go.
Disparity.
Canadian artist. I don't mean to interrupt, but Canadian artist, Martha Johnson, Martha and the Muffins.
Yeah.
The fun comments on YouTube might say, well, she looks more like my Aunt Irma or my Aunt Jeannie than a punk rock star. But she was big in Canada and had that huge hit here, Echo Beach.
Yeah.
But
Echo Beach.
But she was not your typical punker or rocker. She didn't have the tough haircut. She didn't have the look, if you will. But she was a great talent.
Yeah, and somebody else who kind of came on. Oh gosh, why is her name escaping me? And I can just totally see what she looks like. I was going to talk about Canadian, but I was going back to an American girl. But Sarah McLachlan. I want to mention Sarah, because Sarah was responsible for doing Lilith, which was all female musicians concerts for several summers in a row, which I thought was at Lilith Fest, and it was absolutely amazing. Like, everybody was there, all the women,
Right. But again, a lot of the women there, and they were influenced by the early ones, and you didn't have an all-female sort of fest, so maybe there weren't enough to have. But perhaps I would like to have seen Girls' School and Wendy O. Williams do more double bills in around that time, or do any double bills for that matter. Maybe some more Chrissy Hynde working with them. But yeah, and I did mention Girls' School. I cannot mention the great metal artists, female metal artists, without saying Wendy O. Williams. So I noticed how I stuck her in there before. But I mean, she's the epitome of real rock, real metal, I should say. And I'm not just saying for females, but I mean, she has a place with bands like Motorhead and a lot of the other great bands like your Metallicas of the world. She is. But again, metal wasn't a place for women back when she was doing it. I mean, this is real heavy metal. This is the really hard stuff. And she opened the door for future female artists. So it was basically Wendy O. Williams and Girls' School. Then everybody else kind of followed slowly. In the heavier metal genre.
Yeah, in the heavy metal genre.
And again, all started by the Runaways, who were billed as the first more metal or rock all-female band. And keep in mind, out of that band came Joan Jett, Cherie Currie, and Lita Ford too.
Yeah,
who was somebody we didn't talk about.
I love that. I thought we did talk about Lita. No, I thought I mentioned her. Oh, okay.
Go through Lita.
Oh, okay. Do you want to talk about Lita?
Well, another metal icon. Again, she'll go with Wendy O. Williams in the metal icons department. She also had that hit with Ozzy Osbourne later on. Her big solo album was a huge seller, but she'll always go down in history as one of the great female guitarists. A couple of years ago, Cherie Currie and Lita Ford did a Christmas song together.
Oh, really?
Got to play that, yeah. Yep.
There was somebody I wanted to mention, and I can't remember who it was.
That's always yapping on about something else. I know you wanted to mention somebody, and you're not going to forget this. I know we've been through a lot. So,
I was gonna. I know. You didn't want me to mention her, but that's not who I was gonna mention.
I always want you to mention.
I'm still gonna mention Carole King, because Carole King in the early 70s, sold 25 million albums of Tapestry. Tapestry was every. Pretty much every woman I knew had Tapestry. I mean, that was like, you sit in your room and cry album, or you feel good album, or you sing along album. I mean, she was absolutely incredible. And there's a Broadway show about her. So I mean, she's definitely influential.
And keep in mind, how many hits did she write for other people before that?
Exactly.
Before she became, and again, another woman who wasn't prepackaged.
Yeah.
Okay. This is another, we could have missed out on her singing. Yeah. If it wasn't for the fact that somebody said, no, you got to be out front.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And probably missed out on her.
Probably James Taylor was responsible for a lot of that.
Right.
I would think.
Right.
Yeah. Dear friend.
But but people are still singing her songs. People are still covering her songs.
They're still singing her songs. Right. Still singing her songs today. She's amazing. I saw her not that long ago, and I had Kate Taylor on my show, and Kate sent me tickets to go see her brother and James Taylor and Carole King in Boston at the TD Center. Best seats in the house. Thank you so much, Kate. Best show.
Nobody sitting in front of you or standing up in front of you?
Nobody stood up. They were all polite. And it was probably the best show that my husband and I have ever seen, ever. Really, 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 really good show.
Well, that's
amazing.
That sounds like a good show.
Yeah. And it's a cool stage because it rotated. The stage rotates. So you get to see all the musicians. It's not just, where your seat was. Wherever you sat, it was a great seat. So that was really wonderful. Who else needs to be recognized? Come on, guys. Out there. Help us out here.
Well, if I want to go into a more early punk, we can always mention the Slits. We can mention Exene Cervenka of X. Now she was just.
You can mention them. I don't know who they are.
All right. Well, kind of like Poison Ivy and Lux Interior, they were a husband-wife team who led the band. But X was a great ensemble, and I remember a long time ago, VH1 was doing the top female or the most influential women in rock and roll, and Exene Cervenka was up there.
Really?
But again, this is LA punk, and there weren't. You're talking about the late 70s, the Paisley Park era, the LA punk movement, late 70s, early 90s. Women just weren't in these bands.
Yeah.
And some of that, and again, some of that might have been regional. Some of that might have been, hey, they weren't discovered, or they just weren't thought of as serious. I hate to put it this way. Women weren't probably not thought of as serious rockers enough. They were. It started out because thanks to your Susie Quattros, your Janis Joplins of the world, and the Hearts of the world, people thought, hey, well, women can rock.
Did we talk about Grace Slick? I hope we talked about it.
There we go. Maybe
my God, Grace Slick.
Through our minds. Great.
Yeah, Grace Slick. Okay.
Grace Slick's another one.
Yeah. Jefferson Airplane, amazing. Hung out Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, part of that whole acid scene. But she is an amazing musician, great voice. White Rabbit was probably the most famous song, I think, that she sang. And you can't mention rock and roll without Grace Slick.
No, that's true. Again, you can't mention metal without Wendy O. Williams. You can't mention rock without Grace Slick, Janis Joplin. Can't do that. Joan Jett. Here we go. Here's somebody we really haven't talked about as far as female guitar players. And I know you're not a new waver or a punker. Rose McDowell out of Scotland. Now, we talk about female lead guitarists not being very prominent. Now we're talking about a woman whose main guitar was a 12-string.
Oh, wow.
A 12-string, okay?
Wow, that's amazing.
And that's her signature guitar. And again, that's something you did not see. And she put together, she's famous for being with Strawberry, or putting together Strawberry Switchblade with Jill Bryson. But she had 4 or 5 bands throughout the 80s, maybe even more. She still plays today. But, I mean, even the female lead guitarists weren't playing 12 strings.
And you know what else I love? I love the electric violin. And there's a female plays that with Jan Arden, who's just spectacular. She's like amazing. I love that. I love the sound of that.
You're a Canadian, and you want to talk about electric violin. And I know this artist is not a woman, but one of the greatest electric violinists is Nash the Slash.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, he's the Canadian guy. He was from FM for a little while, if you remember that band.
Yeah.
But there's a group of gentlemen who were on my show, Revenge of the 80s Radio, who were doing a documentary on Nash the Slash.
Okay, I thought you were going to mention somebody else because there's a very famous Quebec guy who's a.
Oh, not Poindexter from
No.
Revenge of the Nerds, right?
No.
But that was an electric violin too.
but I love that. I don't know what it is about the instrument. I hate violin, but I love electric violin. It sounds really cool. Okay, why can't I remember her name? She was with Kid Rock for a little bit. Come on, help me out here. Beautiful, plays guitar. She had cancer. Went with the guy, the bike guy.
Now I'm drawing a blank.
This is what happens when you get old. Oh my God.
Well, okay, we need some of that senility medication or something. What do we have to do? Take first of all, I'm not going to ever eat kale, so that's not going to help anything. No, vile weed, if you will, as the great. She
was with Lance Armstrong. Come on, you can see her.
Was she his dealer? No, that's
sitting in drinking a beer. First song came out. Oh gosh, she's huge. She's huge now. I mean, she's gorgeous, and she plays guitar. She was a school teacher. Come on, I know you guys all know what I'm talking about out there. I don't know why I had her name earlier, and it just went. I'm so sorry.
I can get away with this because I specialize in music that's older, so I can just say, well, gee, I don't know because this is the more modern stuff, and I can go. Let me.
Been around for a while. Come on.
Well, while you're doing that, let me take you back to somebody who was influential in Australia, and Australian rock should not be tossed aside as well because there were a lot of great bands, but then women weren't prominent then maybe until the mid '80s. They were poppy. But this one broke the mold, and her name's Chrissy Amphlett from the Divinals. She mixed like sexuality, the sultriness with a very raspy voice, and had a band of great rockers behind her. She was, if you remember the songs "Pleasure and Pain," science fiction songs like that. This wasn't happening in Australia at the time. Maybe you had a couple of female rockers, but most of the women that were getting international acclaim out of Australia were named Christy Allen and Olivia Newton-John. Nothing to disparage their great talent, but we didn't see the female rockers coming out of there until the Divinals broke that little glass curtain, if you will.
Sheryl Crow.
Yeah, boy, how could we forget her? She had.
Sorry, Cheryl.
Yeah, she was one of those artists who became very prominent in the '90s as well. And again, that seemed to be a big wave. Your Melissa Etheridge's came out to be great.
How did we forget Melissa? Yeah, I mean, I had her down here.
I figured we were going to switch to the '90s soon. I know we bounced back and forth with Alanis Morissette.
We're out of time. We're out of time, my friend. We
need a part 2 of this.
We can do part 2, but right now we are out of time. Always leave them wanting a little bit more, right?
There we go. If you'd like to catch Susie Quattro, check it out on my show.
Check it out. When is that show again?
It premieres Friday, March 1st.
March 1st.
If you're watching this on a podcast, you can find it on our website, revengeofthe80sradio.com, our iTunes, Amazon, or on our radio affiliates.
Okay. Chris and I are out of Facebook. We will see you next time. Goodbye, and thanks so much for joining us. 1 second.